Hi guys, happy Monday. It is Maker Monday, 7 p.m. here on the East Coast, and it's 7:01. I am behind a whole stinking minute, you guys. I don't like it when I'm behind. So, how is everyone? It's been a minute since we have met on an actual Monday for our Maker Monday series. Last week we did not. We met on Tuesday, and the week before that we had summer camp, so we didn't have our regular Maker Monday. So it has been a while. I hope you guys haven't forgotten about us. That would be sad. Hi guys. Hi Suzanne. Hey Holly. Hi. Did everybody have a good weekend? I feel like it's been forever since I've spoken to you guys, and it really hasn't been that long. That's just sort of how Mondays feel sometimes. Hey Jody, hey Bernadette, Maggie, so good to see you guys. Did you guys have a good weekend? I know I just asked that, but I didn't really give you time to respond. I just kept on talking. Oh, my weekend just was not quite long enough, but that's just the way it goes. But here we are, it's another Monday, and we've got fun stuff coming up. So that's always good, right? It's always good to have good, fun things to look forward to for the week. And today is no exception. So we've got our weekly deals that are new for the week. I will touch on those for you guys. So right now you can buy one, get one 50% off on the boho beads. And the code for that is boho50. There's no spaces there. Okay. Make sure that you don't try to add any spaces there because it won't take it. Next is a free tassel set with every $35 that you have in your cart. So if you spend $35, you can get a tassel set. If you spend another $35, you're going to get another tassel set, and so forth and so on. So that's a really kind of cool one. And the code for that is tassel time. And again, no spaces. And then last but not least is $10 off the magical mystery bead boxes, and the code for that, as always, is mystery. And if you guys have not checked the website recently, there are t-shirts for summer camp. So not only do we have the zip-up sweatshirts for pre-sale, but there are t-shirts for pre-sale as well, which is super, super cool. And all of the Design by Me mini mixes have been restocked, and that is super cool because that just happens to be what we're using for tonight's project. So the Designs by Me is the Walmart line of Jesse James beads. Now this is not available in every single Walmart across the country, but most Walmarts are participating in this. So at most Walmarts, you're going to be able to find your Designs by Me collection from Jesse James Beads. And it is the little minis as well as strands. And if you cannot get these at your Walmart, you always can get these on Jesse James Beads, which is awesome for our international customers because they do not have Walmart. So also heard through the grapevine that eventually you're going to be able to get these on the Walmart website as well, but that has not happened just yet. But we're going to be using the one tonight that is called Sweet Garden, and this is one of my favorites of the mini mixes. I love this color combination. It's got some really beautiful kind of sage greens and some really soft pinks to it, so it kind of reminds me of like cactuses. I don't know, there's just something about it, and it's just really, really beautiful, and it has some really fun tassels in it. So I'm going to show this to you up close and personal, but if you guys are interested in this one, it is over on the website. It's one of the very first ones that comes up right after the shirt, the DVD, the jacket, and then a little tassel assortment. It's the very first one of these that comes up. All right, so let me just say hi to everybody before we get down to it. Hey, Wendy. Hey, Wanda. Joy. Joy says, love that skeleton behind you. Thank you. I'm actually about to change up the background a little bit. I just ordered because it's almost NFL time. Maybe. We don't know yet, but we're hoping, fingers crossed. But I'm going to be changing up. I've got a Kansas City pennant that I'm going to be hanging up back there. So I don't know if the skeleton is going to make it or not. He may have to bump out of the way so that I can show some team spirit. Oh, Rosanna says she got the t-shirt and the sweatshirt. Me too. That's like on my list. Oh, Lynn says, Sarah, you always teach the beginner so much. Thank you. Well, you are so welcome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. There's Miss Kay. Hey, Kay. And I see Miss Jane is here. So everybody's here. Everybody's here. Good, good. I'm glad. So speaking of beginners and projects, so tonight's project is one that was actually a request. And we've actually touched on this technique several times. And you guys know it's a favorite of mine. So if you ask me to do it, I'm gonna do it. And that's the herringbone wire wrapping. Now the reason this came up is because over when we did summer camp, I taught a ring that had some herringbone wire wrapping in it. And that was the very first exposure that some people had to herringbone at all because they were new. They were not only new to summer camp, but they were new to wire wrapping and they were new to Jesse James beads. So I absolutely would love to oblige. They wanted to know if I would be sharing any more of the herringbone wire wrapping. And so I thought tonight's project would be a good opportunity to do that. And the reason that I chose this in particular project is because this is going to be a good one for those of you who have never tried herringbone before, but it's also one of those that is going to be a good experiment for those of you who have been working on herringbone wire wrap and you want to see what else is possible with it. Because it is one of those techniques that you could like take it and run with it and do the most amazing things with it. And so tonight we're actually going to do some herringbone, but we're going to do what is considered free form herringbone, which might scare some of you, but don't let it, because I always kind of equate the word free form with I can be messy, right? I don't know how you feel about it, but whenever I hear free form, whatever comes afterwards, I hear, oh, I get a free pass to make messy mistakes. And yes, that is 110% true. So with tonight, I'm going to walk you through this. It's not super hard. It is not the easiest thing to watch, so I'm going to do my best to show it to you and break it down as easy as I can. But what I want you to gain from this is, after we are done with tonight's project, that you look at the herringbone wire wrapping and you look at your Jesse James beads and you think, oh my gosh, what can I do next? What's next? No matter what is going on in your designs or your creativity, always ask the question, what's next, right? Because you never know what might come. So I'm hoping you guys are going to really kind of like this one. If you don't, that's okay, right? But yes, Sue says, I love freeform. It's permission to not follow the rules. Yes, and this is 110% not following the rules of herringbone tonight. So get excited. All of you messy wire wrappers, all of you who don't like to follow rules, tonight is your night. Okay, all right, let's do this. So first and foremost, let's take a look at these great beads and then let's get down to it and do some freeform, shall we? It'll be interesting, right? Okay, so move the wire out of the way and let's talk about these gorgeous beads. So for tonight, we are using, let me take out some of the hardware that I have in here. I do have my ear wires that are in there. So this beautiful little mix, Designs by Me mix, this one is called Sweet Garden, like I mentioned before. This colorway, I don't know what it is, but there is just something about this that I absolutely love. And it's funny because I'm not normally a pink person, but I don't know, you start mixing in some copper and some green into this and all of a sudden I'm like head over heels for it. So here's what we've got. So first and foremost, it comes with a cute little clasp, and you're going to notice that with the Designs by Me mini mixes, a lot of them are going to have some extra hardware, whether it is a clasp or a pretty charm or something along those lines. I love that. That always makes it a lot of fun, and it takes a lot of the thinking out of the mix because I know that this matches and I don't have to think about, okay, well, if I make a necklace, what should the clasp be? It's already there for you. Okay, so there are some hints of some antique copper, which is a color that I'm really, really loving right now, like loving in an extreme kind of way. Like I want antique copper everything right now. I don't know why. I think it's just because it is very, it's very fall friendly, and we are headed that direction, guys. Like it or not, fall is around the corner, but it also mixes really, really well with the gold tones, which I adore. So there's lots of greens in here. These glass pearls are absolutely gorgeous. We're going to use some of those. Some of my favorites are these rectangle beads. You guys know that I love a rectangle bead or a square. I'm a sucker for that shape. And these are really cool because they are green, but they're also kind of blue, and they almost have like a purple undertone to them. They're just a really cool color that I really, really love. And then of course there are miracle beads in this, and the miracle beads are going to be the star of our show tonight. These drops, we're going to use these to do our little free form. Vicky, you're so funny. You guys crack me up. And then of course the tassels that I mentioned. This is one of my favorite tassel, what would you call that? It's like it's a style, right? This is one of my favorite tassel styles. So it's the ribbons in loops, and I don't know, there's just like not enough of these in my life. I feel like I need lots of jewelry with these looped tassels. They're just super cool, and they look very, very floral, which I think is why they were added into this, is they very much do look like a flower. Just really, really pretty. So this is a beautiful little mix. Tina says they are so stinking pretty. They are so stinking pretty. Like they really, really are. This whole combination is just really good. Well, I mean, they're always good, but there's something about this particular colorway, and it's a pink combination with that green that you can wear into fall. Like this doesn't really speak spring to me. This really kind of does speak like soft colors of fall. Anybody else feeling that way about it? I don't know. Maybe it's just me. All right, so these are the beads, or some of the beads, that we're going to be using tonight. And as far as wire is concerned, we're going to be using some 24 gauge wire. I'm using the German style wire in a beautiful gold color, and you are going to, Wanda says you call those mop tassels. That's perfect. They do look like little mops. I love it. I love it. So for the 24 gauge wire, you can use, I'm using, like I said, German style wire. You can actually use artistic wire for this. So if you've got artistic wire on hand and you want to use it, please feel free to do so. This is one of those projects where either is going to work, and it really just kind of comes down to, you know, what you're more comfortable using. You are going to need quite a bit of this though. So we're going to start out with about 24 inches of this. And this always gets me in trouble when I'm doing lives and I'm using large pieces of wire. I end up flipping the beads all over the place and bad things happen, but we're just going to roll with it and see what happens. So just be warned, beads could fly. It could be a mess. So I've cut about 24 inches here, and that might be a little overkill, but you guys know I always would prefer to have more than not enough. So the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of these gorgeous little teardrop miracle beads, and I'm going to thread that on to one end of my 24 gauge wire. I'm going to bring that kind of to the middle. It doesn't have to be exactly in the middle, okay? It's just close, right? It doesn't matter. We're going to cut some of this off, so it's not going to make much of a difference one way or another. Excuse me. Okay, so now this is where that whole freeform kind of herringbone thing comes into play, because we're following some of the rules of the herringbone wire wrap, whereas some of the rules we're actually going to just toss those out the window and kind of do our own thing, okay? So the first thing I want to do is I want to bend the wire that's at the bottom of our bead and just kind of lock that bead in place. So now I can let go, and I know that that bead is not going to wander around on the wire, right? It's sitting right there where I want it to be, okay? Now that same wire that I have taken and I have bended, I want to now take it along the outside edge of the bead up here to the top where our other wire is coming out. I really am going to have to move these beads. I like to keep the beads in the shot just because they're pretty eye candy, but I really feel like they're going to end up in the floor. So I'm sorry, guys. Okay, here we go. Okay, so we've guided that wire, we bent it, right? And now we've guided it up the side of the bead, right? And it's going in front of the wire that is coming out of the bead and going this direction, right? Okay, we're just leaving this wire alone for now. This one, though, we want to take it and we want to wrap it around that wire all the way around once, and then back out the front. So we really have locked that bead in place now. See how we've the wire just going up one side, wrapped around this whole straight section of wire that's coming out the top. Okay. Now, excuse me. Now we're going to take the wire, okay, and we're going to go down the side of the bead this time. Okay. So we're going down the side and then around the bead and back up the top, and we're trying to go behind the wire that's already there. And notice I said try, and I'll tell you why here in just a second. But again, now we're back up here to the top, and our wire is going in front of the wire that's sticking up this way, and we're going to wrap around again, around, and then back out the front. Okay. Now, here's why this is very, very free form. First and foremost, our wraps around this bead are not super snug and tight. Okay. Second, we want to try to follow the rule of every time you wrap around the bead, you go behind the wire wrap that you just made. However, when you're using very small beads, and this is not the smallest bead that you can do herringbone wire wrap on, but it is a small bead, okay? A lot smaller than anything we've used previously. When you are wrapping around the bead and it comes to going behind the last wire wrap that you just did, sometimes it just doesn't want to. No matter what you do, okay? No matter what, it will not stay behind that wire wrap that you just made. And that is okay, okay? Give yourself permission to let this be messy, because the wire is just an accent here. We're not really showing off our skills of herringbone wire wrap and how fancy we can do this. What we're doing is we're just using our wire as an accent as well as the structure. Okay, so give yourself a break with this. It does not have to be perfect. Okay, now for each one of these, I like to go around 3 times if possible. Yes, Wanda says not much width with that bead. You are exactly right. Because this is a tapered bead, it's very difficult to make those wires stay. It's a tough bead. So my next wire wrap is actually not going to go behind. So I'm coming around the side of the bead, doing all fine, but then when I get down here to the bottom, like it wants to slip off, right? It wants to slip off. So I'm just sticking that wire wherever it will go at this point, and I'm not going to fight with it because it's not worth it. The one rule that you do not want to give up on is the going in front. So every time you come to wire wrap around your straight section of wire, you want to always be going to the front, okay? Whether you're doing freeform or whether you are really following the rules, it always has to go to the front. Otherwise, it will not look like herringbone. It will look like some other weird thing. And there's probably a name for it, but I don't know what it is. So we're sticking with that, always going to the front. Now I've gone around the bead once, or I'm sorry, on one side you can see there are 3 wraps. On the other side there are only 2. That's just kind of the name of the game when it comes to doing your herringbone wire wrapping on a bead where you don't have a loop here at the bottom, right? It's always going to be uneven, and that's fine. Now, if I wanted to push it, I could go around this bead one more time. But let's be honest, it is a small bead. And there's just not a whole lot of extra room, so we're not gonna. We're not gonna. We've got that beautiful metal accent from the wire. That's all we need, right? That's all we were going for. I'm gonna wrap around the straight section of wire one more time. So I've got an extra wire wrap here just to create a little bit extra space, okay? Now, I'm going to remember this wire that's coming out the top of the bead. We're just leaving it, still leaving it, not doing anything with it. This wire that's coming out this direction, however, we're going to thread another bead onto this one. One says I'm pretty good at that, some other weird thing technique, right? If we would just name those things and make them something official. Okay, so on this wire that's coming out here to my side, I'm going to thread on another one of these teardrop beads, and you saw it just fell right down. Okay, we're going to create a little cluster out of our little teardrop shaped beads. So This bead is sitting sideways, right, off here to the side. And I want to lock this bead in place, but I want to leave myself a little bit of room here, enough room for some extra wire wrap. So I'm leaving myself about 1/8 of an inch right there between the top of the bead and the straight section of wire here, okay? Now, just bend that wire just to lock that in place. But notice, there's wiggle room here. Jane, I'm using 24. We'll call it Technique 99. I love it. Sylvia, that's brilliant. Use your Technique 99. That's going to be like our secret language. Everybody who does not come and watch these lives will never know what that is and think that it is something wonderful. It totally is. All right, so we've got wiggle room here. That's exactly what we want. Now, we're going to kind of turn this a little bit. However, it's comfortable for you to hold it in your hand because, again, remember, this is free form, so you can hold this however you want to, right? It makes absolutely no difference. It's just whatever's comfortable. This wire, we're still just ignoring this guy. We're pretending like he doesn't even exist. All we're worrying about is this wire that is coming out, right? Okay. Now, we're going to follow the exact same steps. We are going to bring the wire up the side of the bead and in front of the straight section of wire that's coming out of the bead, right? Okay, we haven't changed anything. Still doing exactly the same thing. And then I want to take that wire and wrap it around that little straight section of wire and still following that going in the front. Okay. All right. And now we're just going to repeat, and you'll notice I'm going to turn this entire thing in my hands. So don't get confused. I haven't changed wires or anything like that. Move these beads out of the way because we are about to have a big disaster. Okay. I'm just kind of turning the whole piece in my hands. So now it's upside down, but all I'm doing is just guiding that wire along the outside edge of the bead. I'm going to try to go behind that first wire wrap that we did on this one. Okay. Come right on back up to the top. The wire is going in front of that straight section of wire. We're going to wrap around and then back out the front. Okay. And you can see, again, it's not tight up against that bead. That's what makes this freeform. It's totally okay that there's big open spaces here. It really should be very organic, okay? Don't stress about it. This is the one herringbone wire wrap technique that you can really just let it go, okay? Right, we're gonna go again. We're going down the side of the bead, wrapping around, all the way around. We're gonna try to go behind the wraps that are already there, but if it doesn't make it, stick it in the middle. Totally fine. It's okay. I'm okay with it. Are you okay with it? All right, we're back up to the top straight section of wire here, and we are going in front of it, and we're just going to wrap around. Okay. Just like so. So we're kind of creating some little flower petals, sort of, okay? Now there's still a little extra space here. We're just gonna fill that in with some wire wraps. And you know what? These can be messy. They don't have to be perfect. They can be whatever kind of wire wrap you are comfortable with in there, right? So when you look at it close up, those are not the prettiest wire wraps you've ever seen, right? But that's okay with me. I'm okay with it. Okay. So now while we're looking at it, it looks like two little legs, right? Okay. Now that one wire that we've been working on and working with this entire time, now we're going to ignore it. Okay. We're going to forget about it. We're going to move over here to this wire that was sticking straight out, and we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to add another one of our little miracle beads. This time it's going to come over here on this side. So this wire we've been using, just straighten it out and ignore it. Okay. And now we're going to pop on another one of our beads. Wanda, please behave yourself. Oh, I put that upside down. Oh my gosh, you guys, you're so funny. Okay. All right, now we're going to add another one of our little beads here, okay? And again, I want to give myself a little bit of space in there, a little bit of wiggle room, right? Take the wire and just bend it to hold that bead in shape or in space. But there's still plenty of wiggle, okay? Steph, they call them miracle beads because it looks like they're glowing from within. And it doesn't really come across on camera that way, but when you've got them in your hand, they really do kind of look like they are lit from within, which is awesome. Okay, so now we're going to follow the same steps, okay? Take the wire up the side of the bead to the front of that empty space at the top of the bead. We're going to wrap around, back out to the front, okay? Now we're going to take the wire down the side of the bead, all the way around the bottom, and then up behind the wire that we already had there. If you can make it stay, if not, go in front of it. That's okay. All right, and now we're back up to the top. We're going to wrap around, back out to the front. Kind of like a little pinwheel shape going on here, okay? Now we're going to go around one more time. I'm still using the same wire. Don't get confused. I know I'm just kind of holding it however I can hold on to it. Okay. Up the side again, and then around. And this time I'm going to wrap around another time, right? Now, when you look at this up close, see all those wraps? Those are not pretty wraps. Those are messy wraps. We want them to be messy wraps. We don't care if they are big and bulky and just out of control. It makes no difference. If you wanted to, you could pop a bead right here in the center and cover all that up. We're not gonna, but I'll show you how you can. So now we've got these two wires here. We only need one of these to continue on with our earring that we're going to be making. So I'm going to trim this one that we were using. I'm going to go ahead and trim it off. Okay, so now we just have the one. Now the cool thing is that this is 24 gauge wire, so it is completely bendable. We can turn this into whatever kind of little shape we want. We can squeeze them all together and make a cute little cluster. We can spread them apart and have them, you know, like flower petals. It's whatever you want to do with this, right? And you can keep going. If you wanted to add more miracle beads to this and do an entire flower, that's what I'm hoping that you're going to see from this, is that that's totally possible, right? If wire has ever intimidated you or scared you in any way, this is that, hopefully that kind of bridge the gap kind of technique where you are totally okay with the messiness and you realize what is possible, right? Wire structures don't have to be perfect at all. I don't know whoever said that to you or why you think that, but if you do, take that and just get it out of your head. It does not have to be that way, right? Wire is meant to be messy and fun. And so, okay, now if you wanted to, right, before we move on, if you wanted to take a bead, pop a bead on here, right, and you wanted to bend that wire just like this and put that bead in front of all that wire because you don't like it and you think that it's messy, you can do that whole herringbone wraparound technique to this little round bead and keep it right there in the center, and it'll cover up all that wire. Possible anywhere. anywhere in your wire work, okay? I'm not going to though, because I'm embracing all of the wire wraps that are there, so I'm going to take that off of there. What I am going to do, now that I have kind of made some kinks in my wire, is I'm going to come in my nylon jaw pliers and just straighten it up a little bit, okay? Straighten that back out. Okay, now I'm going to thread on, let's put some beads on this. I'm going to put one of these gorgeous pink rondelles from our mix and drop that down. I'm going to put on one of these green glass pearls and drop that on. Okay. Now I'm going to create a wrapped loop up here at the top, and I'm going to show you guys how I create a double loop a lot of times when I'm using the 24. Yes, Jane, it absolutely could be an angel. And if you dropped this one in the middle down just a little bit, it might look more like a body. Like they're very much the same distance, all three of these, but if you dropped this one down just a tiny bit, maybe an extra 2 or 3 wire wraps, it might look more body-ish. All right, I'm going to show you guys how I do a double loop on this, which is really just kind of super easy. Excuse me. But I like to do a double wrap a lot of times when I'm using really thin gauge wire. 24 is not particularly thin, but it is kind of getting there. So anytime I'm using 24 gauge wire, 26 gauge wire, 28 gauge wire, if I'm making a wrapped loop, I love to double the loop. So here's what I do. I start out just like I would if I were making a regular wrapped loop. Okay, I'm grabbing that wire right where it is exiting our top bead, and I'm going to bend it just like I normally would and take those pliers away. I've still got that little space in there. I'm going to come in with my round nose pliers and grab the wires that is running between the barrel of the pliers, and I'm going to go up and over the top barrel of the pliers. Okay, and then I'm just going to roll the pliers out of the way so I can go ahead and take the wire on over to the other side. Now, before I do the wire wrap, I'm going to do that again. I'm going to just open up the pliers. I'm leaving the wire on the tool, but I'm opening up the pliers so that I can take that wire and wrap around the barrel of the pliers a second time. So I'm just essentially just doubling up that loop, right? The wrapped loop is just double. And that's a really easy thing to do, but I feel like it gives some extra security when you're using some of these thinner gauged wires, particularly anything smaller than a 24. Okay, now I'm going to wrap around that section between the loop and the top bead, and because we're feeling decorative, we're going to take the wire and we're going to go across diagonally that bead. We're going to go all the way around the center, across the next bead diagonally, and then we're going to wrap around the bottom here, and you might have to really kind of tug on that wire to make a space to wrap around. But there you go. Okay, now I'm going to come to the back, trim off that tail. Okay, now we have this really pretty little floral design, and you can make this as full as you want to. You can add whatever beads you want to, any shape, right? Any of your Jesse James beads are going to look awesome with this. So I do want to use one of our little rectangle beads for the top up here because I want mine to be a little on the long side. So I'm going to do another little section of wrapped loops here. I'm going to do doubles. So I've got, it's about 6 inches here, which is way too much, but you know. Okay, I'm coming down on the wire, I'm going to bend the wire just like always. Coming in with the round nose pliers, I'm going up and over, roll the pliers and take the wire on over to the other side. Now I'm going to double that. So I'm going to open the pliers, take that wire around the barrel of the pliers a second time, and take it around. Whoops. And now I'm going to switch hands. Okay, and I'm going to wire wrap about 3 times. Thank you. Come on in. Okay, trim that off. Now we have our eye pin, but because it's 24 gauge wire, it's double. So our little loop just is extra strong, right? We don't have to worry that anything is going to cut through that since it's double. All right, we're going to thread on one of our little rectangle beads, and we're just going to repeat that on the other side here. So we're just going to do a wrapped loop, Following the same steps, up and over, roll the pliers out of the way, take that wire over. Now I want to do it again, so I'm opening the pliers again, wrapping around one more time. Okay, and I'm gonna wire wrap, and since I have extra, I'm gonna go across the surface of the bead too, just because we're feeling fancy. You can always skip those steps. You don't have to do that part. Sometimes I'm just really feeling the wire, you know? All right, so now I'm going to trim that off, and I am going to straighten up my loops a little bit so that they are going in the same direction. And I'm just going to use a little 4mm jump ring here to connect these together. Let me grab, oh no, what happened to my jump rings? Okay. Grab my other pair of pliers here. Sylvia says she needs to practice the crossover. I love it. It's a lot of fun. I add it to a lot of things just when I have extra wire. All right, so there is that. And now we're just going to add an ear wire to this. And I realize that this is kind of a short project, but I feel like even though it's a short one, it's an important one for those of you who are playing around with wire. And so I'm not going to push it. We're not going to do anything crazy or extra with this, because I feel like you can take this exact technique, play around with it. You're going to be able to create some, I always have extra wire. Always. Always, yes, always. But I feel like you can play around with this and play around with your Jesse James beads, because there are so many different shapes and styles and textures of beads available through Jesse James beads, that I feel like you're really gonna kind of have a lot to think about, right? Just grab yourself some wire, grab some, practice with your artistic wire if you are not comfortable using the German style wire to do this. But play around with it, play around with the herringbone, and let this be that kind of bridging the gap between, those of you who are brand new to wire and are wanting to kind of have less structure, because it doesn't have to always be super structured, right? Does not have to. And it can be a lot of fun, and it can be messy, and it's still just as beautiful. Do not ever, and you guys have heard me say this a million times, complicated doesn't mean more beautiful, right? And it is in no way a representation of your skill, right? So just because you make a simple pair of earrings, or because you make some messy wire wraps, that doesn't mean that you're not skilled. So don't ever think that. Don't ever think that like your jewelry making is an extension of you have to show what you're capable of to everybody through all of the techniques that you've put into one piece. Don't do that to yourself. Take the pressure off of yourself, give yourself some grace, and realize that wire is not meant to be intimidating. It is meant to be fun, and it is meant to be messy and organic. And there is a whole niche of wire wrapping that is that, right? So just play around with it and see what happens. Maybe you'll love it, maybe you'll hate it, and you really want the structure. I feel like a lot of people are one or the other. Those of us who are really, really structured have a hard time doing messy wire wraps. And then the other ones, the other side, have a really hard time doing structured wire wrapping, and really appreciate that there is a way to make beautiful jewelry with messy wire. Robin says, could you have done it without a jump ring? And if yes, how with a double wrap? Well, that's the tricky part. So when it comes to wire wrapping two things together with a double wrap, Unfortunately, there's no easy way to do that. And so a lot of times, if I'm going to just wire wrap the two together, only one of them will have that double wrap. And that's just because I feel like every time I try to make that little loop the second time around to reinforce that loop, because of the way that you have to really kind of work that wire around, let's kind of walk through it real quick. Because of the way that you have to, that little amount of space you've got, it really is just, it messes up the loop shape too much, in my opinion. So here's our double. Okay, so I went around twice. Let me wire wrap just for the sake of it. Okay, so if we wanted to add something to this, right? We're just playing at this point. And we wanted to do another wire wrap and link the two together. Okay. Now, we haven't gone around a second time. Take the tail end of that, pop it through to link the two together. Now, the problem here is that you cannot put this back on the round nose pliers because you've got something attached to it, right? And if you try, it's going to really kind of destroy the shape of the wire unless you are super, super, super patient and you want to use your other chain nose pliers, right? I mean, it's really difficult. And so it's not something that I ever do, mainly just because I don't have the patience. It can be done, obviously, because I'm doing it, but that's not easy. That is not easy, just being completely honest with you. So it's possible. It's just really challenging. And I think you'll see once I get this wrapped around, like we've completely lost the round shape to that loop. And unfortunately, when it comes to 24 gauge or small gauge wire, there's no coming back from that. Like that's a mess. See, it's just not, you can even see where it's like, it's open, one of the loops is bigger than the other. So I avoid that. I just avoid that at all costs. Yes, you can do it, but no, for me, that's just too much trouble. So a lot of times when it's that kind of situation, I'll just use a really sturdy small jump ring. Like these 4mm jump rings, they are, I believe they're 20 gauge at the very least. I would prefer an 18 gauge in between here, just so that I feel like I have even extra strength there. But I wouldn't go any smaller than a 20 gauge jump ring. So if you're going to use a 4mm, definitely make sure that it's a thick one and not a super thin one, because that kind of just defeats the whole purpose of the extra security with your double rings, right? Because the whole point is to make sure that nothing comes apart. So there you go. All right, guys, I'm going to give you one last look at these gorgeous beads real quick, and I am going to put this earring on so that you can see it, and also there will be a picture of these that you guys can go back to if you want to see, right, if you need something to refer to. All right, let me turn you around. Jane says, looks mangled. I hope we're talking about the rings, like the loops. Never know with Jane. Jane could be like, oh, Sarah, your nails, they look mangled. That earring, that was awful. It looks mangled. You never know with Jane. She can totally say those things, though, because we're friends, for real. Not just anybody. Oh, my goodness. Okay, let me put this on for you guys so you can see it. So, you guys, if this is too long of an earring for you, you obviously can turn this into a pendant, or you can leave out the rectangle bead. But I feel like they're just so feminine and pretty, and the colors are just so nice, right? I really, really like it. I feel like it's a lot of fun, and it's one of those designs where, you know, even if you don't repeat this exactly the same way, that's okay. Take the technique, take the gorgeous beads, and come up with something fun. You know, take it easy on yourself. I know a lot of people with the summer camp, with the rings in particular, the one with the herringbone wire wrap, you guys were being really hard on yourself. And, you know, and you were like, I don't understand why mine is so messy. Why does it look so bad? It doesn't look as good as everybody else's. Don't do that to yourself. First and foremost, don't pay attention to whatever everybody else is doing. Everyone's skill levels are totally different. You don't know. The person next to you could be a wire wrapper for 50 years. And the person on the other side could have been doing it for literally 24 hours. So don't compare, right? Don't compare. And give yourself a break. Give yourself a break. If you're making this a struggle and you're being hard on yourself, you're taking all the fun out of it. And the fun is, you know, is in the adventure of learning new things and making crazy, insane wire things. So make crazy, insane wire things. Use Technique 99. Post it on the Secret Stash group. I want to inspire you to try something new. Give the wire a chance and see what happens, you guys. Maybe you'll come up with the brand new technique that everybody is going to be talking about. So you never know. There are some of those things that we haven't figured out yet. You could be the one. All right, guys, that's it for me. You guys have an amazing night. Don't forget about the weekly deals. Those are fresh today. So there will be the weekly deals will be going on all week until Monday, so you can shop on those. And we're back to our regular schedule, so you guys will be able to come over if you want to see a craft project over on Dress It Up on Wednesday at 1 p.m. Or you can catch me again at 11 a.m. right here on Thursday. That's Eastern time. So Thursday morning, I will have another project for you guys. And that's it for me. Have a great week. Have a great start to the week, right? It's fresh and new. I will see you guys in a couple of days. If you need me, send me a message. I'm more than happy to help you guys. Bye, guys.